The X-Men are these superpowered people born with godlike abilities and persecuted by nearly everyone because of this. And this isn't because they're evil or violent or have done bad things. No, it's simply because they exist. They are the classic story of people being envious of what others have and lashing out with anger to make themselves feel better. But this video isn't about people and their petty little squabbles, but instead it's about which one of the Lantern Corps the X-Men belong in. Mystique. Now, Mystique's character has undergone a lot of changes over the years, but since she's a shapeshifter, I suppose that kind of makes sense. Which is a terrible joke and I'm sorry I made it, but let's just ignore that and carry on. Now, for this video, we're going to focus on the version of Mystique that was in the new X-Men films, where she is played by Jennifer Lawrence. And for her, there are a few choices. In the film Days of Future Past, she is out for blood and attacking all the humans who have wronged her and her fellow mutants. And when it comes to vengeance, the Red Lantern Corps is the only option. But in fairness, this revenge that she has is really only this part in her life, and it's really only for this film. And she does ultimately manage to overcome her need for vengeance when she saves the life of the president and spares the life of the human that she has been hunting. All of which leads us to X-Men Apocalypse, in which she has become a symbol of hope to all of mutant kind, to the point where mutants practically worship her, and they certainly idolise her. She has become something of a mythical hero and aspiration for people to live up to, at least mutants. And so the Blue Lantern Corps of Hope would work for her and does make sense, given how much hope she inspires. But the problem is, she doesn't really want to be this beacon of hope. She wants to help others, yes, she definitely wants to help them, but she never wanted to be idolised by the masses. And this is because ultimately she wasn't motivated by a need to inspire. So this Lantern Corps wouldn't really be right for her, as she wouldn't want the ring. But she was motivated by a sense of love for her fellow mutant. She wants to help them in any way she can. Now, she thought she could do this through murdering humans, but this was ultimately just because she was in a dark part of her life. I mean, she was very much wrong. And she realised this and changed tactics. And now she just helps mutants instead without having to kill people. And when you actually look at all the films she was in, all of her decisions do seem to be fueled by love in one way or another. From her first film in her feelings for Charles Xavier, following his mission for mutant kind, and then her feelings for Magneto, where she then followed his vision for mutant kind, and even at her lowest point after Magneto tried to kill her and foiled her assassination attempt of the person she'd been hunting, even then she still turned to her family and confronted Magneto about why he tried to kill her. She didn't just attack him wildly or go and attack others, she let her love guide her decision so that she could peacefully come to an understanding with him. And she didn't kill him because of these feelings towards him. And so I think for her, love is the right choice. And it seems to be the best emotion that defines who she is and the choices that she has made throughout her life. And as for the Mystique that we see in the comics and shows, well, she could be in the Love Lantern Corps, certainly. I mean, it may seem odd for an assassin and a thief, but it does make sense for her in a way, because she does have some strong relationships here and there. But really it doesn't make sense on the whole. I mean, the best Lantern Corps for her would be Avarice, because all she has really done for the many decades that she has been alive is cheat, steal, and acquire as much wealth as she can. This really is the only Lantern Corps for her, at least the main version we see of her in the comics, and the one that we see in most of the animation. And it really requires very little explanation, as it just makes perfect sense. Seriously, if you've read anything about her in these comics, you'll get exactly where I'm coming from. Storm. Now, Storm has to keep constant vigilance over her emotions, as they can cause her powers to go out of control. And considering that she is one of the most powerful mutants in the world, that is saying something. After all, if she gets too angry and loses control of her temper, she might lose control of her powers and cause a tsunami. And this is something that you really have to take into account with her character. I mean, after all, if you literally have the power of a god, well, that means you would have to constantly stay in control of that power. And as such, Storm has always been a very calm and in-control character. And because of this, she makes it very hard to figure out which one of the Lantern Corps she should be in, because she doesn't display that much emotion really. Now, with that being said, she obviously still has emotions, so she could definitely link to one of the rings. But the reason I've brought all this up is to show that her willpower is her most dominant emotion. After all, if she didn't have a super strong will, how else would she stay in control of her powers? On top of which, the main qualification for being in the Emerald Lantern Corps is being able to overcome great fear, which in Storm's case would be her claustrophobia, as this is easily her worst fear. And while it has been quite debilitating for her in the past, literally making her lie on the floor, basically unable to do anything, well, even so, she has still managed to overcome this fear when the need has arisen, which again means this is the right ring for her. So I think Will makes the most sense. I mean, it is true that she has deep compassion and strong love for different characters, but I think these are far outweighed by her willpower. I mean, she is a strong character who always remains in control and is a natural born leader. I mean, she was worshipped as a goddess in Africa and didn't abuse her power. She was also leader of the Morlocks, leader of the X-Men, and became the wife of T'Challa and thus Queen of Wakanda. And she was always calm and collected and never abused her power. And through it all, she has exhibited intelligence and control. And I think that just shows that her willpower is without a doubt her most dominant emotion. Especially when you take into account the fact that she's been able to overcome her claustrophobia, which was such a crippling fear that she's had. So I think there's just no choice but to put her in the Green Lantern Corps of willpower. Jean Grey. Now fear is definitely an option for this character. She is one of the most powerful mutants in the world and a psychic on top of that. And revealing our inner secrets is a fear that we all share. On top of which, she was also the Dark Phoenix, a being so powerful that she once destroyed an entire galaxy, and it only took her about 5 minutes. She didn't even get tired from doing it. Though since she only did this because she was possessed by the Phoenix at the time, this isn't the real Jean Grey. That being said, the Phoenix does seem to come back when Jean Grey dies or when Jean needs it the most, so fear is still a factor because she does have that insane power at her fingertips. Just ask Mr. Sinister, who had all of his mutant abilities stripped away from him after Jean Grey was brought back to life by the Phoenix. So because of all of this, she does naturally inspire fear throughout the galaxy. And I do mean the entire galaxy, as everyone was aware of her abilities at one point. And so she does qualify for a Fear Lantern Corps ring. But just qualifying is not enough. A person has to truly want to belong in that corps and accept the ring when it's offered, because a person can always reject it and simply not wear the ring. And Jean Grey would definitely do that, as this is just not who she wants to be. However, there is one Lantern Corps that she is overly qualified for. Now, it's kind of a rite of passage for the X-Men that they have to die and be resurrected, at least once, before they are really a true X-Man. And Jean Grey has died and been reborn more times than any other X-Men character. Unless of course you count Wolverine's healing bringing him back to life as deaths. But as such, she is uniquely qualified to be in the Black Lantern Corps of Death, having died and returned so many times that she is basically the poster child for resurrected mutants. And as such, I think the Black Lantern Corps of Death is perfect for her. However, it does have the same problem as the Fear Corps, and that is that I doubt she would accept it. But as we all know, very few members for the Corps actually are offered the ring and can accept it. Almost all of the members of the Black Lantern Corps are corpses. Corpses that the rings have simply attached to and then brought them back to life. And instead of the person wearing the ring and controlling it, the ring is wearing the body and controlling her. And when you take that into account, I would say this is definitely the right Lantern Corps for her. The ring just needs to wait for the next time she dies, which won't take long, I'm sure, and then it can hop on her finger and bring her back to life. I mean, yes, there are other Lantern Corps, fear and compassion do come to mind, but the fact that Jean Grey is infamous for having died and been come back so many times, well, to me, that just means that she has to be in this Lantern Corps. It just makes perfect sense, you know? Gambit. Now, Gambit was born in the Bayou and grew up in the Thieves Guild, and as such he was stealing from a very young age and has spent the vast majority of his life taking things from others to make himself richer. Some versions of his character have even sold out mutant kind just to make some money. So taking that into account, it's pretty clear to see that his main motivator is greed. So really, avarice is the perfect fit for him. Or at least it would be if not for the fact that he changed his life completely, rejected his past, and became a hero when he joined the X-Men. And then he spent the rest of his life making up for the mistakes of his past. But the question that will lead us to his Lantern Corps is, why did he make this change? He abandoned his old guild and the people in it that he had known all his life, and he rejected their philosophy on life, which is basically just take from others to make yourself richer. But still, he rejected it. And we all know that there is only one thing that can make a man make a change in his life this drastic. And that is, of course, love. Gambit's feelings for Rogue do seem to be what really prompted such a drastic change. Or at least that's what he wants the world to believe. And while he does no doubt have enormous amounts of love for Rogue, I seriously think he does, I also have to say that I do think part of him just wants to be a better man, and he's kind of using the whole Rogue thing as this excuse for doing it. That being said, he does still love her immensely, and it does still motivate pretty much all of his decisions. So he definitely qualifies for the Love Lantern Corps. But part of me also thinks that that's just not the right fit for him. You know, it's not that he doesn't qualify, it's that it just doesn't really feel right for him. And instead, I think it makes more sense for him to be in the Green Lantern Corps, as it takes an enormous amount of willpower to make this change and for him to deny his criminal ways. And at times, Gambit has been tempted to stop being a hero and going back to being a thief. But he always finds the willpower to keep on the straight and narrow. And that is no easy feat. Stealing is Gambit's addiction, and we all know it's not easy to give up an addiction. It takes great strength of will to resist and to keep resisting. So as odd as it may sound, I think this is the only Lantern Corps that really makes sense for him. Well, that and one other Lantern Corps. You see, at one point in Gambit's past, he was one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen. He literally became Death. And when you become one of the 4 horsemen, Death, the rider of the white horse, well, that does mean that the Death Lantern Corps becomes a possibility. But in the comics, he does overcome this persona and pushes down the horseman abilities that Apocalypse gave him, and becoming himself once more. So once again, I think that actually shows that he belongs in the Wheel Lantern Corps. I mean, he was one of Apocalypse's 4 horsemen, and that means that he had some amazing abilities and was pretty much immortal. And yet, he rejected that, he overcame it, he pushed it down, and showed that he had a phenomenal amount of will. And that clearly shows without a doubt that he is fully qualified for the Emerald Lantern Corps. And I think it is the ring that he would readily accept. So my choice for him is willpower. And those are my choices for the X-Men's Lantern Corps. But what do you think? These are as always just my own opinions after all. And if you agree or disagree with them, then please let us know in the comments along with your reasoning. And I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.